It's Worth It: How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relatives, Friends, and Neighbors, and other books written by Egberto Willis.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willis, your host. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas. Good morning to the United States of America. Good morning to the entire world receiving our signals via the magic of the internet, formerly known as ARPANET, created by whom? We the people, you the people, the Defense Department, something that you paid for. Anyway, folks, we have a great show for you today. But you know what? I just have one statement. You know, when you have government by morons, you get moronic government. And I try not to speak in these terms, but these are serious times. And when you have leadership that is unserious, we get the results that we're getting now. And it's a danger not only to America, it is a danger to the world. But anyway, before we get further into this discussion, let's go ahead and pass it on to the geniuses, los genios in the studio, known as Howard Reynolds and Jack Van Beba.
Well, Jack and I were sitting back here laughing. You know, when you hire morons to do a job, expect moron actions. Well, you know, whenever a clown moves into the palace, he doesn't become king. He becomes the
Bozo the king.
Yeah, what is it? The palace becomes a circus, pretty much like that. And that's what we've got going today. Unfortunately, I have no rants. I just can't wait to hear what Brian's going to say and what misinformation he's going to give us this morning. Or maybe I shouldn't say that, okay? I take that back, Brian. We just can't wait to hear what you've got to say this morning. And Jack has a almost full page of wisdom here, so let's get to that.
Let's get wiser.
This one. Jack Wiser.
Sounds like a beer.
Good morning, Egberto.
Good morning, Jack. How you doing this morning, my brother?
I'm good, sir. All right. Trump must really secretly hate Americans. His mean-spirited policies are no secret. Now he wants to charge a fee to file your income taxes, as Trump and Musk are going after direct file because it stops tax prep companies from scamming taxpayers for services that should be free. What's next? No more bread for the poor? Cut water rations in half and cancel Christmas. He's making government inaccessible to the people as he increases government overreach into working Americans' hip pockets.
He can't cancel Christmas. He's the Grinch. What would he do?
Well,
you're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
I'm glad you brought that up, though. I'm glad you brought that up. This is something that I think Americans can do something about. And I want to stress this again. What Jack spoke about, imagine that we are supposed to pay our taxes. I believe in taxes. I want to pay my taxes. The government is supposed to tell us how much we owe based on what we make and the laws that they pass. Why the hell do we need TurboTax, which I use to do my taxes? Why do we need to purchase something from a private company who gets all its information for the government in how to fill out your taxes? When the government writes the laws, why shouldn't it present you with a portal so that you can do this free of charge because you are paying the government? It is another way the private sector extorts money from you. But they do it in all these different subtle forms, and we are so used to it, we accept it. But that's why we are here, to tell some truth. Anyway, today's Thursday, and it's normally Neil Aquino's day. But, you know, the one and only Bruce Pollard has been very helpful over the last 2 weeks to come in and take up the slack for El Señor Aquino. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in one of our great supporters of the station and of the program, El Señor Bruce Pollard. Good morning, Bruce. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Egberto, and hi guys down at the station. It's glad to be one of the morons, which I feel as though I fit right in. And, the government actually does give you a way to file your own taxes without paying extra money. The issue is whether you want to drive a car or ride a bicycle. And they'll give you a bicycle to ride, but they don't put any air in the tires. So odds of you getting where you need to go is pretty small.
But
So
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Bruce.
it's a nice try. It's a nice try, but they're catching up with the rest of the world. But problem, that at the rate things are going, Mark Zuckerberg and those guys will be able to buy the United States at a discount price after Mr. Trump finishes with us.
Well, let me just say this about the software that the government generates for doing your own taxes is by design not competing with the TurboTaxes and the other tools. But let's also remember that. But by the way, what Jack said was actually true in that Trump has cut it off. That direct file is now going away. In other words, he's saying we're not allowing that anymore. Now, here's the funny part about it, Bruce. TurboTax was created by some very good software engineers. They wrote the program, etc. But guess where the specs came from to write that programs? The government, because they're the ones who write the laws for how these things are supposed to be put together. But guess what else is also true? What else is also true is that the same people that TurboTax hires, meaning Intuit, the same Intuit has a corporation. They hire engineers at some salary to build this piece of software that charges you money, that then enriches a shareholder of Intuit, that enriches executives at Intuit, so that you can file your taxes. So here we have the government subsidizing a private company to go ahead and charge the rest of us money to go ahead and a thing that we have to have. It's the same thing as like Medicare Advantage, right? The government provides Medicare Advantage by private companies, which they never did before because old people were too expensive to insure. When the government started insuring those old people, they said, oh, by the way, we can do it. We can do it after all. But it just will cost 20% more than it costs traditional Medicare to do the job. Folks, it's a racket that they use our ignorance. They use our ignorance of not understanding how things really work to get at us. But anyhow, Bruce did some studying to kind of bring us some good information based on what's happening in today's world. We've always talked about the Powell memo and that doctrine of having business just about take over a country. Hey, Bruce, give me a little word and for us what you
So the
found.
Powell memorandum was written in the early, I guess, 1970.
Yes,
And,
71, I believe.
It really points to the job of people in business having to change the way educational systems work, so they indoctrinate people to either excel or be subservient to the high-end people the oligarchs who are running the country. And it's funny because when you read it, you think, oh, that'll never happen. I went to Marquette University. I taught chemistry at Marquette University. I went to Carroll College, all those places. They wouldn't do that. But Mr. Trump thinks that they ought to modify the way they teach so that kids coming up through that careful time where they really start to think about who they are and what they're going to do, they'll make different choices than what we've tried to help people do through the 50s, through the 60s, through the 70s, through the 80s. And it's just not the right thing, in my opinion. And I think that the kind of free thought that we have, certainly here on KPFT, but everywhere else, where we can talk and come up with the right thing. But the big problem is, if we come together and talk as a group, or stand out in front of the Capitol and raise our signs, the people who we've elected and go in to vote and make the laws, they don't act on our behalf. So it's a big problem.
Now, Bruce, do you have it up in front of you right now, the Powell memo?
I don't.
Okay, let me just say this, because it just even the beginning of it starts just like the right wing, where they are always victims of some nebulous lefties. Let me just read a couple of the paragraphs how it starts. This memo was written by Lewis Powell, and it was sent to Eugene B. Sidner, chairman of the Education Committee, U.S. Commerce. And I want to show what it says. It says, this memorandum is submitted at your request as basis of discussion on August 24th with Mr. Booth, U.S. Chamber of Commerce. The purpose is to identify the problem and suggest possible avenues of action. It starts out and it says, no thoughtful person can question that the American economic system is under broad attack. This varies in scope, intensity, in the techniques employed, and the level of visibility. There always have been some who opposed the American system and preferred socialism or some form of statism, communism, or fascism. Also, there always have been critics of the system whose criticisms have been wholesome and constructive, so long as the objective was to improve rather than subvert and destroy. But what now concerns us is quite new in the history of America. We are not dealing with sporadic or isolated attacks from a relatively few extremists or even from the minority socialist cadre. Rather, the assault on the enterprise system is broadly based and consistently pursued. It is gaining momentum and converts. The sources are varied and diffuse. They include, not unexpectedly, the communists, the leftists, and other revolutionaries who would control the entire system, both political and economic. These extremists of the left are far more numerous, better financed, and increasingly are more welcome and encouraged by other elements of society than ever before in history, but they remain a small minority and are yet the principal cause of concern. The most disquieting joining the chorus of criticisms come from perfectly respectable elements of society, from the college campus, the pulpit, the media, the intellectual and literary journals, the art and science, and from politicians in most of these groups. The movement against the system is participated in only by minorities. Yet, these often are the most articulate, the most vocal, the most prolific in their writing and speaking. Boy, that one. Did you want to comment before I comment on this, sir?
It's just right, and you know, you missed a word in earlier. It said the new leftist. That means that puts me out of it, because I'm over the age of 70. That makes me an old leftist. And so, but I've got to tell you, every time I read this, it makes me shiver, because the only thing that even when we're not the minority but the majority, somehow things don't work right, and I guess money talks, because nobody's hearing us up in the Capitol these days. They need to make some changes. They need to make them fast, otherwise they're not going to have any ability. I mean, if Mr. Trump's going to ignore the courts, when the courts say you have to do something, who's to say he isn't going to ignore the House of Representatives? he sent a note down to the House of Representatives recently to do something, and they've got 40 days after they reconvene to do that. Otherwise, he can take his own action, I guess. So
It's called a unitary executive.
So it's going to be only him, and you wonder what. I guess he's nominated all of the people who just sit at his left hand or right hand, it might be, and they're just doing what he says. And I can't imagine there's a system in place that the House, that the cabinet should be able to have some balance even within the executive branch, and I can't imagine that happening. So I think we're going for a train wreck here.
Yeah, I want to go back. First of all, you're absolutely right, but I want to go back to some of the paragraphs in that document, because when we texted yesterday, you mentioned that you you were reading over the Powell memo, and it is sort of scary how things have the path has really been laid out by this memo written in, I think, let me look at the date. The date was August 23rd, 1971, folks. Think about that, 1971. That was a baby. Now, here's the funny thing about this, right? If you take a look at who they claim is the enemy, it's it's all of society. It is pretty much claiming society is the enemy of business. I mean, it names all the entities. It names the clergy. It names the schools. It names the media. It names anybody that have any left inclination. So there's nobody else left. It's business against everybody else.
Specifically, they pull out the Ivy League schools, and Harvard is right in that group. So
yeah, and you were talking about that when we spoke. That look at what they're doing with Harvard. It is simply saying we've got to cripple the most influential educational sources. And for those who say, well, they have a liberal inclination. Unfortunately, the truth, anytime you talk about the truth, whether it be vaccines work, and a university says vaccines work, AI comes out and says, does vaccine works? And AI takes all the documents it has available and says, oh yeah, vaccines work. So what does the right winger say? Oh, AI is biased. AI has a left-wing bias. Well, if truth has a left-wing bias, I guess AI is in fact biased, okay? But the other thing that I wanted to mention is that in effect, what is happening is that Bruce, I don't know if you have a boost on your volume or not. If you do, see if you can turn it up. But Howard said it may be a bit low, but we'll see as we go by if it'll clean itself up from Zoom. But here's the interesting thing about it, right? In effect, what the document is saying is Americans are becoming smarter. And as they become smarter, they ask themselves very important questions. Why is it that our labor, which is what happened when unions started to form, why is it that we do all the work and somebody who sits in a high chair in an air-conditioned office gets all the spoils from the work we do? They ask themselves these questions. They ask themselves, why is it that others benefit more so than we do, the working class that is? And when they start to rebel and say we want our fair share, to Lewis Powell and the business class, how dare you? How dare you mess with our antiseptic slavery that we have implemented very diligently for you not to really see? And and like I said, by 71, Americans were waking up. They were waking up, and it scared the bejesus out of the business. And out of that, we got folks that are listening who always say, well, this think tank says this or that think tank says that. Look up the Heritage Foundation, the Cato Institute, or any other conservative think tank funded by folks like the Koch brothers, etc. And you find a common thread. And that common thread, as Bruce pointed out, has been the Powell memo. The Powell memo. Anything else you have to say, Bruce, before? By the way, folks, you can start calling. The number is 713-526-5738. The video that I have is 20 minutes, 24 minutes long, and I think I leave that for you to play on your own. I'd rather get some calls and talk about these issues. 713-526-5738 is the number. 713-526-5738. All right, Bruce.
Yeah, so it's really good if you call in and have an opinion, and Egberto can talk it out with you, because that kind of discussion is what we need between people, standing in front of the Capitol or everywhere. So eventually we can get to some place where we can all have a great country and a great world and a great universe, so that we can study life on exoplanets.
Hey, by the way, I haven't read it yet, but I saw a little. Actually, I probably saw it on Morning Joe, where apparently the either the Hubble telescope or the other big telescope we have out there thinks that they found life on another planet because of a.
Yeah, it was the Webb. So there's a chemical that is only created by living things in any abundance. It's carbon disulfide.
Okay.
The nice thing is that has a really great infrared signature, and the Webb telescope measures that. And so they were looking at a planet that's about the size of Neptune, which is bigger than Earth but smaller than Jupiter. And by looking at that, they saw a big heavy signature of that, which means there must be a large ocean or something creating that, or there's some other chemical pathway which we don't know. But there's a lot of that chemical there, which means there might be eventually some life there. They have to go back and do a bunch of modeling to actually see what the chemical evolution pathway of that particular chemical is in vis-a-vis life as we know it. And it may be that there's something, it's nothing to worry, because it's 110 light years away, which means even our radio signals, which are only about 100 years old, are just now reaching there. So they're not going to freak out about us quite yet. If there are people there listening, I know that we're here listening, trying to wait to see if we hear anybody sending us a signal.
But hey, hold on, Bruce. There's one thing. We don't know. There may be a wormhole somewhere now.
Well, so I, being a scientist and a follower of the known truth, I track things that are pretty well known as fact. And that's actually what we are here, is factually based. And so, at least at this point, there may be things like you talk about, but for a living human thing to travel faster than the speed of light would be a very interesting thing to have.
It would actually be impossible, right? It would mean that our mass reaches a mass of infinite mass to get to that speed, right? So we can't really get.
Well, yeah, there's a relationship there that would be violated a little bit.
Yeah.
And but on the other hand, you never know. Maybe cats will come out of their hiding from us, from their hiding their intelligence from us, and they'll show us a way. Cats forever have been able to defy gravity. If you watch a cat when they fly through the air, only cats can fall on their feet.
This is what I get for bringing a confounded PhD in chemistry onto this this program. Anyway, let's go to the callers, Mr. PhD. Richard, come on in, Richard.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to talk to you about the town hall meeting that I went to last night in Montgomery County. Real piece of work. This Morgan Luttrell, pure MAGA. 2020 election was stolen. I mean, just eat up with it. I know he doesn't believe it. He's just playing to Trump. But the point I want to make is we went there with the mindset of being subtle and asking questions that were going to make him squirm, but not going to, be antagonistic.
I get you.
And,
exactly. You're civil.
Well, yeah, we know we're not going to change this moron. Well, I don't even want to call him a moron because, I mean, that gives him too much credit because he knows better, but he's playing to Trump. But anyway, we wanted to try to get the audience to think and watch him squirm. That didn't work right off the bat because immediately he started lying, saying, I wanted to express that 95% of immigrants coming across the border illegally has been stopped immediately it's pure lies. So fight or flight kick. I mean, it was a Gestapo-type atmosphere. There was 7 or 8 cops there ready to pounce. And we already knew what had just happened the day before in Georgia with Marjorie Taylor Greene's we were ready. But it's...
at the rate that we're going, in another maybe 6 months or so, we're going to have a problem with people from the United States trying to illegally cross the border to get out of here.
Yeah, let's get Richard.
Okay.
Yeah, Richard. What else?
Let me explain something to you. I got to tell you this now. I've been to all the protests. I have a big old 4-foot by 8-foot sign. You've seen it. I'm on Reddit. I'm on YouTube.
Right.
It's a piece of plywood. It's got Musk in the middle doing his Nazi salute. It's got swastikas on both sides. Now, there's this little old lady, little Jewish lady, looked like Dr. Ruth with big hair, at the city hall in Houston, in my face, telling me that I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. She's thinking I'm trying to send some sort of subtle messaging. It's got a line through it, a red line. The universally accepted negative of this line
Nazi,
through.
yeah, right.
She's trying to say the line's not big enough. I can't see the red line because if you turn the swastika at its angle like it's supposed to be historically, the red line goes right through the middle of the black bar.
Right.
And you want it correct. You want it historically correct. And so I tried to explain this to her, and it's like, I know what you're trying to do. Here's my point, Roberto. The right wing is laser focused on the left is wrong, the left is hateful, the left, it's all the left's fault, no matter what kind of evidence comes along, the left is wrong. They're laser focused on it's all our fault. We're evil. We can't even agree on what a protest sign is. That's why we keep losing. You understand what I'm saying? She's there to protest, but yet she's going to dog me out because she thinks my sign is incorrect. And another guy that I had just met there, and I got there early because I wanted to get that one spot in front of City Hall up on that old wall right in front of the pond. And there was a guy had an Astros cap on, and so I had one on, and so I started talking to him, and he said, I like your sign. I'm like, yeah, let me tell you something, signs can make a difference. So I started telling him about the McMillan Stinks, Ryan, and Ashby fans incident that's happened in '89. My wife and I took this sign to the Astrodome expressing our distress over him, John McMillan, the only Astros, getting rid of Nolan Ryan and then Alan Ashby. Well, man, the fans caught on to it. John McMillan had to end up trying to do PR work, trying to do damage control. He started a McMillan's Corner in the Astrodome for underprivileged kids that were sick with cancer and stuff like that. So my point, and that's what I'm telling this guy, so science can make a difference. He goes, oh, yeah. Later on, 2 hours later, he comes there and starts agreeing with this crazy lady. You see my point?
Let me just say this. Let me say this, Richard, and this is important when it comes to protesting, right? When it comes to protesting, you get a few paid organizers that are out there. I'm talking about how the right operates. They always talk to us about those people that come out on the left are paid. They're not. The left, I wish they did that. We need to start doing that. But the left is sort of organic most of the times. Even the Indivisible movement, which many promote is very organic. If you listen to Cindy Hendrickson on my show a couple days ago, you see how organic that thing is, right? Now, on the other side, they get professional paid folks and they know how to disrupt so that you cannot get your message across. One of the arts in doing what you're doing is not getting the people's emotions up. Let me tell you, I've been to hundreds of protests, both here in St. Louis and others where we shut down freeways and all of that. And the magical thing that they fear the most, and I learned this from a woman here in Kingwood who was in the ERA movement. And when she told me this, I went home, slept on it, and I'm like, oh, damn, powerful. She said this. She said, silence is powerful. Okay? In other words, these right-wingers that are always activated and shouting, etc., they need fuel. And your frustration is their fuel, right? So let me give an example. You were out there with your big sign, and this crazy lady comes and starts shouting at you and telling you things. One of the biggest things that one could have done there, I'm just giving an example, is as she go berserk to smile and tell her, and don't this. I know this is gonna sound corny. You take them out of their comfort zone. Something as simple as, you may not think so, but I love you, ma'am. Something as simple as that. Throw a curve at them in the most mellow, loving form. You would be surprised what things like that have the power of doing. And sometimes just being quiet. When Elaine told me that,
I don't know if you're missing the point, because
I do get your point. I do get your point. I really did. But
okay.
Go ahead, continue, and then I got to go to Bruce. But continue.
I'm at Neil's Tuesdays.
Right, I recognize your voice. Yeah.
Okay, and he's been picking up our slack for 8 years. But I just want to say, you can't believe how many people pull up to that stoplight and say, "How much do y'all get paid? How much do y'all get paid to come out?" They really think this.
Yes.
And I've learned what you just said works. When they start shooting me the finger and F you and everything, instead of doing the typical, because I'm triggered, I just turn it back and say, "Trump loves you. Trump loves you. Trump loves," and and I love him. Yeah, and facts don't matter, do they? So yeah, you're right. Do it with a smile instead of getting triggered. And I'm working on that.
Richard, I gotta go, but thank you. First of all, thank you for going to that town hall. Keep doing what you guys are doing. Y'all are doing very, very good work, because folks need to know that people are, you know what? It's very important for people to see themselves in you. And when you are showing that, it empowers others to do it as well. So thank you, my brother.
Neil Aquino is the hero.
That's my hero.
You talk of him. Yep.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother. Peace. Let's go to Bruce. Come on in, Bruce. How you doing, my brother?
Good morning, Alberto. How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Morning.
Hey, wait. Hey, before you start, I said, come on in, Bruce. I'm surprised our Bruce did come in. I'm talking Bruce here on KPN.
Yeah, I think about that. There's two Bruces. It's bruising. So we're cruising with the bruises today.
We're bruising with the bruises. Anyway, talk to me, Bruce, on the phone.
Yeah, sometimes I think the other Bruce is my doppelganger. We both named Bruce. We're both over 70 leftists. We both love science. I don't have a PhD, though. What I'm afraid might happen is, Trump can't control his impulses. He never can. And I think he's going to break down and come after one of these protests, and we're going to have a Kent state all over again, and all hell's going to break loose.
You can't believe. I was thinking before getting to Ohio, as Egberto was reading the Powell memorandum.
Yeah, that is amazing, Bruce. I think both Bruce agree on that. Continue, Bruce.
Yeah, I have 3 little tidbits of inside information about Trump's physical, and they have to be true because I just made them up. Tidbit number 1. the doctors found out that tiny hands don't mean tiny tallowacker. It means tiny brain. The other thing is they claim that they did a colonoscopy. How in the world could you get an instrument past Pam Bondi's head? And the third thing is they said he had a skin problem because he had these round red marks all over his rear end. Well, those are Republican hickeys. I'm done.
Oh, let me translate. Pam Bondi has her head up is you know what. They are all kissing is you know what, and he has a small brain. Oh, you are so ingenious in the way you say things, Bruce.
Yeah, but I really am afraid of him coming after one of these legitimate protests.
Let me tell you what's. Sorry to interrupt you, Bruce, but I don't want to forget this. But here's the deal. I think the reason he asked Pat Bondi to check out about martial law, is because he's looking for a reason at some point to use it, right? And at that point in time, there are two things that has to happen, and that is whether Congress is going to wake up, and number two, whether the military, comprised of all our relatives, families, and friends, and brothers and sisters, will follow. He thought by having the military led by his people, that somehow the military will just acquiesce to whatever he wants to do. I think America is, and look, with all the problems we have, I think America is better than that, and I just have the gut feeling that the mid-level generals will not allow Hegseth and all these other guys to get away with doing any of that, and at that point, I think we'll be looking at mutiny. Continue, Bruce, and then I got to go to Brian. Yes.
Real quick, one thing that's what I was concerned with is division in the military between like the mid-level generals, and maybe if it got nasty, maybe even Marco Rubio might come over. That's a perfect time for China to take on Taiwan.
Right.
When we have a confused military leadership. I'm done.
But let's explore that a little bit, because I want the audience to understand this. The other day I brought up how smart China was playing the rest of the world compared to how America is playing the rest of the world. China is building friends. It's for their own. I mean, look, they're looking out for China. Every country should be looking out for itself, right? And China is looking out for itself, and in the process, it is building alliance throughout the world. I mean, strong alliances. It's not going into other countries and trying to say, look, China is a communist capitalist country. Let's be clear. China is a capitalist country with a communist government. One is completely disjointed from the other. Now, and it goes into countries in Africa, it goes into countries in South America, Central America, and the Caribbean. It does not attempt to change their political structure. It simply looks to get an economic benefit out of the other countries. As long as those other countries don't mess with China's own structure, they don't mess with their structure. I want you guys that are listening to understand what this has really meant. It has meant that they have put their resources into building physical stuff, building technologies, and building relationships. All those things, because of our might is right, and we have the bomb and we can do as we please, we have used that differently. And we are a country now, as Richard Wolff would tell you quite well, we are at end state capitalism, and we are at end state democracy. So if we as a country, the people in this country, don't wake up and stop these small, powerful, rich guys from taking us down the tube, that is exactly where we're going. Bruce, thank you for your call. Let me go ahead and hear from Brian. You have a great day, my brother. Brian, come on in.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Well, yeah. I don't know where to begin on that type of a statement. You ever heard of Jack Ma? Alibaba.
Of
He
course.
said a few things that was against the Chinese government, and you don't hear about him anymore, do you? Yeah,
Let me
because they
ask you.
come.
I know that. Can I ask you a question about him? Because I know exactly who he is, and yes, you don't hear about him. I am not. I am not talking about the moral or the ethics of a government where you can't, where they restrict what you can say. I'm not. That's not what I'm talking about at all. I hope that you can understand what I'm saying, and stop going from that philosophical realm. I said China is a communist country that doesn't want anybody messing with whatever it's doing inside. But in the same process, it's a technologically advanced country, and it is playing the world much smarter than we are. And I don't have to. You can actually see that with one's own eyes. You can see what's happening around the world if you actually follow international news. Continue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I see what they're doing. Yeah, they're taking like Trinidad Tobago money, 17-1 on U.S. dollars, overthrowing their system and changing it to American dollars. But that's really not what I called about. Johnny kind of needs to grow up and get out of the kindergarten mentality about flying a plane into the governor's home. Okay, what just happened recently to the governor of Pennsylvania? Somebody tried to burn him down. He was a Palestinian protester. He went into his home where his children, his wife, and he tried to kill them. Who shot Steve Scalise? A left wing. Hey, when is the last time a right-winger tried to shoot a politician? But yet it's blown off as, oh, come on, let me finish, okay?
No, I'm not going to let you finish because you're lying. Period.
Thank you.
Now let me just, and I don't use my airwaves for lies. Let me just point this, Brian. When I look, this is the show Politics Done Right, run by KPFT. When we tell you to stop talking, if you want to be on air, you stop. Now hear this.
The last time I'm supporting your program. This is the last time I'm supporting your program.
Brother, look, you can look. Let me tell you something, Brian. Again, you have gotten so much time on this program. Supporting it is your choice.
I'm not supporting you anymore.
Goodbye,
got the
Brian.
last dime for me,
Goodbye, Brian. Goodbye. Look, first of all, let's be very clear. I am very happy with the support that we get from our audience because we're an honest show and we make sure to give everybody the opportunity to talk. But support doesn't mean buying the opportunity to lie on any program. Support means you support the free expressions, period. Free expression, and that's what we do here. Brian does not get a free ride to come on air and just spout it. The fact of the matter is the FBI has done various reports and shown, and you can look this stuff up. That's why I said we don't allow lies. You can look it up. The right has been the most violent entity over the last several decades in this country. Brian said, when was the last time a right-winger went against a politician? I mean, we've caught several attempts at Obama's life. We've caught several attempts at many politicians' life, but we also have the fact that right-wingers have gunned down Americans with AR 15s throughout this country continuously. Every single year we can find right-wingers with AR-15 gunning down Americans to make a point. Those are statements of fact. I will not allow our airwaves to be used to give America the false impression that violence is coming from the left. Whenever you see left violence, we call it out. But what we have been calling out continuously is right-wing violence. Come on in, Taryn. Taryn, you're on.
Hello?
Yes, you're on.
Yes, good morning. Yes, yes. I like how you answer that, and tell him say he doesn't have to give you his support, but I'm pretty sure he'll be calling you back, you know what I mean? But anyway, a lot of people come here and they spread the ideology and they try to tell us this and that about how this is doing that. But if you look at the data, it says otherwise, just like you said. The right wing is the one causing on the most violence marching into the capital city and taking it over. They can do things that me and you can't do. Where in America you ever see a black man walk around with a M16?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Look, Terran, let me tell you. Terran, by the way, brother, I hear the accent from my part of the world. Jamaica?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man,
Yes,
Jamaica.
yeah,
All right,
man. Yeah, man.
let me tell you
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
Terran. And thank you for calling in and pointing at the different levels of privileges people have. If I am walking in Kingwood with an AR-15, I can guarantee you I'll be surrounded by 15, 20 police cars. While if my brother on the other end of the line, Bruce Pollard, my brother from another mother, if he's walking with an AR-15, he doesn't have a problem. There are times that we've been driving in the car and I look at Brian and I say, I mean, not Brian, Bruce, and I look and I said, you see how you can do that? I can't. You remember that conversation we had going to KPFT, Bruce?
I do many times riding with the bicycle too. I remember walking into the store and calming a situation that looked like it was developing between you and the man on the other side of the counter.
There you go. So Bruce, this is my brother here that actually sees the America's reality firsthand. So thank you for pointing that out, Terran. Anything else you want to say, Terran, before I go on to whoever that other call is?
Yeah, I just want to say God bless America. You know what I mean? And it's going to be okay. All this shall pass. America have been through worse than this, man.
Exactly. And let me just tell folks, I love your accent. You know, my grandmother was from Jamaica and moved to Panama.
Yeah, man.
But wait, I have a bone to pick with Jamaicans, though. I went ahead and I said, I went to Jamaica one time and I tried to put on that accent, right? And the woman looked and said, "Go on, man, you're not no damn Jamaican. You're a damn Panamanian."
That's what she said to you.
That's what she said to me, man. She hurt my feelings.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, we talk later. I appreciate your call, my brother.
All right, brother. Peace and love.
Peace and love. Hey, Bruce. But anyhow, Betty's on. We got to go to Betty, Bruce. We got to go to Betty. Come on, Betty. Come on in.
Good morning, Alberto.
Good morning, my love. Talk to me.
Yeah, I'm Brian. He is hostile and he's full of resentment. Get off your white primacy. You make little girls cry. You're a big prick. And I'm going to go to Bart, too. Bart brags about himself. He brags about everything he has. Try to impress you. And, really, look around, Bart. Who gives a crap? Thank you. Bye-bye. Love you.
Whoa. Betty was kind of rough today, man. Love you, Betty. Betty was kind of rough today. I generally try to be very, very nice. That's my nature. Anyway, Bruce, give me some more about your thoughts and what's happening.
Well, so just to slide back to the Pennsylvania governor being firebombed by people. It's a strange thing because they talk about anti-Semitic things, but he was Jewish, and so to attack a Jew because of their feelings, I think that's a kind of an anti-Semitic thing as well. So that's like doing the wrong thing to try and make a statement. The best thing to do is to stand up with a sign and to talk about what it is with back and forth And to get a feeling, for example, a sign with a swastika is going to bring some very uncomfortable feelings from a Jew who have gone through the Holocaust and had millions of people die as a result of just sitting there and listening rather than standing up and stopping something before it got out of hand.
I so agree. And, I like when you mentioned the thing about listening. Listening is powerful. Listening is powerful. And that is one of the things I do a lot when I go out to protest. My thing in protest, yeah, we have our chants. But when people approach and start talking, I get into conversations. And Bruce, you know that firsthand. We get great conversations in our protests.
We don't always agree, Egberto and I, but we come to some understanding and sit at the same microphone and talk together and shake hands and ride bikes together and have our families together and try and make it better. And we live in Kingwood and we get along okay with the people around here well enough to fill up our gas tank and to go to the local places to hang out. So
I mean, look,
it just works if people talk to one another.
And you can be a teacher, right? You can be a teacher with your own way of being, and that is one thing that I learned from being a hothead into trying to get into all spaces. And that is simply, sometimes if you remember the most important thing, it's not about you, meaning yourself, right? It's about what you can promote out there. And if you do that right, you'd be surprised. Even the Bryans of the world, Brian calls here and he wants a fight. And sometimes even Brian realizes, well, maybe we don't need to fight about that. And that is the kind of places we need to go. Let's go to Harry. Come on, Harry. What's up?
Good morning, Ibrahim. Good morning, Howard and Jack. Good morning to your guest, Bruce.
Well,
Bruce,
don't forget Bruce now.
I should say Bruce.
Okay.
Good morning to you, Bruce.
Hey.
I was going to say, we'll see if Brian does what that Joe Big Oil did. I know when you had that argument with Joe Big Oil, he never called again. That was before Trump got back in office. And we'll see if Brian goes the same way. But Brian, like you just said there a moment ago, Alberto, he loves calling in. He loves arguing, fighting with you. And I kudos to what Betty said about Brian Pollard. When they say things that are out of line, I like when callers like Betty or Patrick or even Augie or Johnny, who Brian jumped all over this morning, they put them in their place. But Brian loves talking with you, so we'll see.
Harry, let me interrupt you to say this, and because I want the audience to understand. There's no animosity against Brian. Whether Brian donates or not to this station again, I really don't care. Enough people love what we're doing and understand what we're doing, and they're not paying to just come on the air and lie. They're supporting a free speech. They're supporting what we do, which is important, what we do. Look, I give to a lot of organizations, $5 here, $10 here, $25 there. I don't expect them to adopt all these things that I'm talking about. I do it because I know overall they're doing a damn good job. And what I want to make clear is, look, we treat everybody with respect. He calls here very disrespectful most of the times. In fact, many of you call me and tell me, why do I allow the disrespect? And I tell you straight out, it's not about me. It's about us. Continue, Harry.
Yeah, well, it's just people like Brian and Bard, they love, it's like it's like I told you a few weeks ago. They want to get a rise at. They like to come on here and lie, and you put them in their place when they're lying, when they spread misinformation. As Howard mentioned early this morning, that he was looking forward to, but then he said he backed up on that if Brian's going to give misinformation. But when they do that, it is your job. It's people like you, people like Deborah Arnie Arnson, it's people like Amy Goodman on the Box Now. when people get misinformation like that, you have to correct them because you can't let them get away with those lies.
Hey,
You
Harry,
can't do that.
I gotta let you go, Harry. Let's talk at three something if you listen to the program this afternoon. But I want to pass it on. I want to pass it on to the studio because we got to get out of here, and Bruce has to close out as well. So thank you, my brother. We'll talk later. Bye bye. Hey, studio, come on in, my brothers.
The studio is here. Let me adjust my headset level. Yeah, Brian. Well, Brian, what can we tell you? We put the information out there, and you either agree with it or you don't. So we're going to miss you, man. Jack, what you got, man?
A caller came in and is going to donate in Brian's place.
Thank you, caller. Thank you, caller. Appreciate you.
You see there, we're going to get our donations anyway. Take it home, Egberto.
All right. Let's go to Bruce. Bruce, give me a closer. 30 seconds.
Yeah, so, I'm listening to this, and I'm a centrist, and everybody's looking at the centrists and saying you got to take one side or the other. And I think that we need to be sitting and asking each other, instead of making statements always, we need to be asking each other questions and hearing the answers and then trying to balance the things out to make things the best possible situation for everybody to get along and to grow and understand and to love each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. Look, I love me some Bruce. Bruce always want to make sure to tell me he's a centrist, right? But somehow he always have these values that he wants to make sure people are, well, all right, Bruce is a centrist. All right, brother, you're a centrist, my dear brother. Love you anyway. Anyway, look, the program, there's a great interview at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter that I interviewed a business person who actually is going through these issues with the tariffs. He's somebody living it. I got to get out of here, though. You hear the music. Love you all. You can reach me directly at kpft@politicsdoneright.com, kpft@politicsdoneright.com. You can get the newsletter at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!
You're listening